I see a lot of cases where huge companies are using AI right now and earn millions of dollars because of this impact. I believe that we have a huge room of improvement with AI in hiring. I don't see a real problem because AI is helping both sides in this road of AIs. It's just the race between two AIs and whose AI is better.
We are live on the Objective Hiring Show with Igor. Igor, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for inviting me.
It's our pleasure to have you. And I think a great place to start would be just to hear a little bit more about yourself. Who is Igor? Who are we talking to today?
Yeah, I'm Igor, data analyst. Yeah, in the past, currently a data analytics leader in Muse Group. We are making some products for musicians, from Ultimate Guitar to Hell Leonard. My role is a typical data AI and analytics leader. So I build in the teams, create appropriate decision making based on the data inside the company, uh, building some tools based on AI, so on and so forth. As my side activities, I also go into some podcasts like this. So working on my personal brand, and I own the analytical consulting agency. So we provide services for the companies to build appropriate data teams to monetize data and implement AI-driven drive services to the companies. The company is FactLab. You can find it in LinkedIn.
An excellent intro. And yeah, what an interesting place to start now, actually, if I think about it, because you're kind of at the cutting edge a lot of this stuff. Do you think AI is overhyped? Do you think it's the real deal? Is it really changing things as much as people feel it is?
I think it's quite common for any new technology. And yes, it's overhyped right now. Uh, if we can make the difference with AI, also yes. But as usual, it depends on how do you use this technology. So I see a lot of cases I'm involved in where huge companies using AI right now and earn millions of dollars because of this impact. But at the same time, there are a lot of companies who are struggling with implementing AI because of data quality, problems in organization in terms of the structure, infrastructure, so on and so forth. So it depends on your company and your maturity and how do you actually ready to implement such things.
One interesting lens I was thinking about earlier today was, um, you know, are we currently in a situation where AI is on average overused or underused? And what I mean by that is, are there more things that people are just trying to whack with the AI hammer that is never gonna, it's not a nail, it's not gonna go into the piece of wood, or are there actually way more opportunities that are almost untouched that haven't been solved but could be solved with AI at the moment?
Yeah, 100%. I see the same on the market. There are high technical companies with energetic leaders who implement AI everywhere. But in the end of the days, AI is not always the best solution for any case, for automating any process. For typical implementation of AI stuff, you start with simpler things. For example, you want to automate some process. What should you do? Yeah, first you need to digitize it. Maybe you can automate without AI based on simple rules, and then implementing AI to make the final difference. So, but in these companies, they deep dive into in AI in first steps, and they struggle with implementation because they didn't pass these first steps. On the opposite, uh, the companies who are not involved into AI enough for 2025, maybe it also depends on the leaders, and if leaders uh, are not so driven by new technologies, and maybe they are skeptical about AI roles. They believe that AI cannot replace any professional, and it's stupid, so on and so forth. They are under the general market in implementation. But I believe the situation will be changed in next years because AI is a common sense right now. Uh, the companies that implement it is just more efficient in the end of the days. So they will compete better, and companies without AI will lose this competition in the next year. So they will fast realize that it's a vital step to develop a company, and we will see AIs in the most of the companies in the next 5 7 years, I believe.
I would have guessed and would have felt like, because at least with the LLM changes and improvements we've seen in the last couple of years, because it's been so profound, I would have thought there can't be that many leaders of companies who are still like, oh, AI is all bullshit. I've never even used ChatGPT. It's all overhyped, because it's so big. It's not like it's a small incremental change. It's like a boom, profound change. I would have hoped there wouldn't be that many completely head in the sand leaders. Um, it, if someone was listening to this and they feel like the leader of their business is maybe not as open-minded about AI as they should be, any ideas of how they could get them on board? Would it almost be helping that leader use AI in their own life? Like, hey, Mr. Business Leader, like, let me help you install ChatGPT on your phone, or Claude. I can help you figure out your recipes on the weekend, or I don't know, whatever else. Any ideas on how to get someone thinking about adopting AI when they're against it?
I think I met the same challenge about 10 years ago when I started working in analytics, and it was not hyped yet, and it was not common sense for the market that we use data-driven insights and data-driven decision making and then improve the business. And it was quite the same. Business leaders with old-fashioned mindsets said, "Oh, I don't need it because I fully understand what I should do. I've been working here for 20 years, for example, and I don't need any advices from the side." But now it's common sense for most of the companies. We investing in AI, data, BI, and it helps us day to day to make decisions better. So how dialogue 10 years ago was looked like, you just need to find someone in the company who can take this buy-in for this new technology and make a business case with this leader together. And as you show real business results with AI, you can involve more people into using it. You will come to business leader not with, oh, you see AI, cool technology, let's use it. No, you show them a case. We implemented AI into this process. It automated this process, and it saved us 1 million in the costs. Maybe it makes sense to implement the same for other processes. And when you speak with the leaders on the business language, it helps most of the time. So, of course, it's more long-term conversation, but in the end, the language of facts works in truly data-driven world.
Yeah, money talks. Um, you mentioned, yeah, maybe 10 years ago, facing uh, a similar experience of having maybe some claims of let's use data to make decisions falling on deaf ears. I personally feel like that's been the case in recruitment and hiring for quite a long time, in the sense that I think most people, when they're hiring, would use as the majority of their decision their gut feel or their intuition rather than any metrics. And even if there was some data about a candidate, to be honest, most people would ignore it if they just didn't like the candidate. If there was just some reason they thought, well, I don't know, I don't think they're the right person for the job. I can't even articulate why, I just don't like them. So will we get to a point in the next few years where hiring is largely driven by numbers and metrics rather than kind of feelings and emotions, do you think?
Yeah, I believe it should become true. because now gut feeling or gut instinct follows too many decisions in the end of the hiring. As a hiring manager, I fully understand this bias because all managers had at least one case or even more when you followed your gut instinct and it was successful hiring. But at the same time, it's a selection problem when we forget the cases where we followed our gut feeling, but it was not successful. And in the end, you believe that you have a lot of experience and your gut feeling works. Uh, for me, it's about the balance in the end because gut feeling truly matters. I personally faced a lot of cases where it worked because of rich experience of specific person, specific manager is hiring or with some business challenges. But of course, we can't ignore the real data, and the final decision should be data baked, and intuition should be just one component for such decision making.
What I've sometimes thought about was, having, let's say, a objective hiring process where, you think about the things you're trying to evaluate in the candidate. Could be soft skills, could be technical skills, could be amount of experience. You have some kind of matrix where you're then scoring candidates along it. And then people would often say, yeah, but there's always this kind of like black box, intuitive gut feel element, which I said, fine, no worries. But couldn't we just have that final gut feel bit as just an extra metric? It's like, well, I'm going to say, I don't know, my weightings is 80% logical, numerical, and then I'm going to have 20% gut feel. I don't have to tell you how I come up with this. I'm just going to rate the candidate based on my pure gut. I'm going to give them a 15 out of 20. That's worth 20%. Because then at least we would have called it out and say, well, it's still a factor. We agree it's important. I don't quite know why or how, but at least we can incorporate it and still make it a number like everything else. What do you think of that kind of approach? Could that potentially work?
I love it actually. It's a typical data-driven approach. I can make an example not from hiring, but from product management. In product management, we work with hypothesis a lot. What is hypothesis? It's our prediction of potential impact if we change something. For example, I will recolor this button and it will increase our conversion for 10 points. Uh, how do we work with it? We use some frameworks for decision making. And one part of these frameworks are usually confidence. What does it mean? It's our assessment of the risk of making such decision. And it consists of several parts. For example, you have your gut feeling and its anecdotal approval and justification of this hypothesis. It's about 5% of our confidence. What's next? We can deep dive more and invest more into the research. For example, we can ask experts about this hypothesis. It improves our confidence to 10%. Then we can make additional research, make UX interviews, collecting more data, and it improves our confidence step by step. So in the end, of course, the more objective approval of our confidence will be more data-driven approach. So the final validation will be, of course, MVP, where we launch the actual hypothesis and see real business results. But we can have the same in hiring. Of course, hiring manager, HR, and other people who were involved into the process can contribute with their gut feeling about this candidate. But it can slightly improves our confidence in this candidate. But the main part of this confidence should be based on the objective parts like skill assessment, previous experience assessment, reference check, so on and so forth. So I really love such frameworks, and I think it could help to align expectations inside the company, because the typical problem with hiring I see is that the hiring process candidate by candidate is different, unfortunately, because it's a people factor. It's different interviewers. For example, technical stage for analyst position in my company could be done by several analysts just to distribute the workload. And of course, they have slightly different approach how to make these interviews. But having this metrics of competence, this framework, gives us the main foundation how we make the decisions. And in the end, I fully support such things in hiring as well.
Yeah, it's so hard to control and make something consistent and truly structured if it's done by humans at the end of the day. Even with, as you say, those different interviewers having the same set of questions, the same kind of scoring rubric, what have you, like they're still going to interpret the candidate's answers differently. Each interview is still going to be different because each question is going to be answered for a different length of time, and you're going to drill into certain details and not in others. There's just almost infinitely many paths it could take, which is why I feel like AI would be such a great tool in hiring, because it would have the ability to structure things in a much more consistent way, and at least remove the individual human interviewer bias. It's got other problems, but I feel like there's a lot of upside. How do you think about AI in hiring? Are you bullish on it? Do you feel like this? Yeah, where do you think it's going to go?
I think we can involve AI in the each stage of hiring, honestly speaking. Uh, Talking from me, currently, right now, I still reviewing CV myself. I can fully rely on the AI yet, but I do believe that by the end of 2025, we'll have AI tools handling initial candidate assessment. It could help summarizing key points and offer recommendations to hiring manager or HR through the interview. You should ask about this specific project, or it's not enough information about these specific skills. So let's deep dive into this. It could highlight even the key points in the CV just to screen it better. When you reviewing the CV, you usually have just 1-2 minutes. So, and AI aggregated summary could highlight the most important recommendation to HR or these hiring managers. One interesting thing, even in 2025, when the internet is flooded with advice like your CV should be just 1-2 pages, your CV should be shorter. I still see some candidates with massive detailed CVs with multiple pages. And honestly, sometimes those are the most interesting people for me, but I still have 1-2 minutes. Maybe in the future, as AI-driven assessment becomes standards, CV will actually get longer, what I expect. So you can pack your CV with pack of detailed experience, portfolio, maybe some projects and skills tools you worked with, and AI could extract what is the most important for your specific position and help hiring manager with such summary. And it could make hiring much more efficient because initial assessment would already be much deeper. Uh, in my agency, we have several projects to test such approaches in the companies, and it looks like this: you ask candidate to not to shorten the CV, but make it as detailed as possible, and then you trying to auto assess it with AI, and AI gives you really interesting results on the pilot stages. So I believe it will help. And maybe the second part, it's some help and assessment with the real interviews, people to people, because most of the time, as a hiring manager, when you interviewing people, you make some notes in parallel, and it decreases your focus on the candidate on the real conversation because you scared to forget about some important points. You're scared to forget about some important questions. But if you have AI-based tool to record, then transcript and summarize your conversation, you don't need to worry about it. And on the other side, you can have just not tutor, but maybe AI partners that remind you about important questions, about something you should deep dive with a candidate. And you can fully focus on the conversation here and now and make it more detailed, friendly, and people oriented. So I believe that we have a huge room of improvement with AI in hiring.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And the first point you made around the length of the CV is a really interesting one, because I feel like one of the fundamental issues with hiring at the screening stage, especially, is the data set that each side has to decide is so poor. Like a company has a 2-page CV maybe, and maybe some questions from an application form sometimes, and then the candidate has a job description, and like it's a very weak set of data to make any matching on. So if this new world where you have like a elaborated CV that's going to a lot of detail, and then almost you're like an AI sitting on top of that to summarize and extract, that could be really interesting, because you can always go from detailed to summarize. You can't go from summarized to detailed. So I think that would be a big improvement. And there shouldn't be any limit on how long a CV AI could screen, because it's just a few more tokens.
Yeah, 100%. And there is not another problem with data sets, because if your previous hiring were subjective some way, the model you developed based on this data set will be also subjective. So of course, data is everything, and maybe one of the biggest challenges right now with implementing such things will be to cleaning the data and making this following the rules you want to follow in the end product and AI product. So if you want it to be subjective, okay. But if you go to objective data-driven decision making, it will need additional investments. So maybe you saw some positions like AI professionals for HR, and these people already made some progress in this area. So they fine tune their data sets that company already had to improve it and to make objective AI models even based on the previous history.
So this is based on the previous hires that the company had made, kind of like trying to search for other similar candidates and trying to score other similar candidates based on who had successfully been hired. Is that the approach that they're taking? Do you know?
Yeah, it's not even about success, but about um, how candidate will fit with the position. Yeah, maybe we can summarize it with success, but in the end we can evaluate was there some objective signals that were ignored through the hiring process, and in the end you see unsuccessful case. For example, candidate had average reference check, but you hired him for the uh, position with high expectations, and the candidate failed. You know, it could be a risk, it could be a rational risk, but sometimes it was not a rational risk, it was just a gut feeling, and we need to reduce such factor with cleaner these data sets.
You'd mentioned in passing that with your consultancy, you'd done some projects in this space. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm currently working on several also in this space.
Excellent. Like, if you could chat about one of those, that would be great. Of course, without mentioning names or giving you any key details of your secret sauce. But be really keen to hear more about your experience there.
Yeah, I can add some details about what I've already mentioned. This is a project for non-tech company. It's a factory, basically in engineering, and they produced some metal products, and mm, they had a challenge to implement AI into some semi-engineering, semi-IT jobs, and they didn't have a huge data set for this to to learn and to make a prediction of candidate will be successful or not. So what we decided to do, ask candidates to provide as much information as they have about candidate experience. Share the portfolio, LinkedIn, your CV, cover letter, anything you can share about yourself. And don't limit yourself with this 1-2 pagers. And up to this, we use several LLMs to summarize this experience related to the specific position and highlight what are the most important areas we need to deep dive in the interview first, and red flags that could prevent to in the further steps of hiring. And on the pilot stage, we have very good results because very few candidates in the end approach this way. So they invested time to make their CVs better and detailed, but the ones who did it, they were more motivated at first, and secondly, they give us this useful data set. And currently, hiring manager and HR have a list of recommendations generated by this AI model. What should you ask about candidate? This is an interesting case, and you could deep dive into this, and in context that candidate will need the same experience in this position. And yeah, from the initial feedback and initial data, we improved the funnel in this hiring because we just dropped the applications with low details. Maybe it's not so fair, but it was request in job description, so candidates who didn't follow it, we just dropped these applications from first. And we have lower funnel with fewer candidates, but with more qualitative feedback, and it works better in terms of conversions from stage to stage. And we already closed 7 to 10 roles using this tool.
It's an interesting project, and yeah, great to hear something that's happening like right now with AI and hiring. So that's yeah, really cool to hear. Yeah, I imagine that kind of approach would be a bit market dependent, just because in the current market climate, I guess for a lot of companies, they've got an excess of candidates. There's almost like too many people applying. And so in that scenario, you can almost afford to ask a bit more, gather a bit more data to have a better prediction. But then, we might have had like a 2021 market where it's like, oh, there's no candidates anywhere in the world in tech and data. We have to just grab whoever we want. So it's almost like I sometimes feel like in hiring, the approach you take and how much data and how accurate you can be is almost dependent upon what you can get away with, in a sense, with the market conditions. Is that fair to say, do you think?
That's a good question. I don't have a final answer. Is it good or not, this candidate flood, when you have thousands of applications to your position? But my initial thought about it is that I don't see a real problem, because AI is helping both sides in this road of AIs. Employer has an advantage here in resource because employer could invest more into AI to improve initial assessment and drop non-targeted candidates. So if candidates use AI to improve their CVs, companies also use AI to analyze them. It's just the race between two AIs and whose AI is better. So AI skills, I believe, is expected from candidates anyway. So if candidates use AI, it's a good flag for us. It's actually a plus than a minus. Candidates learn some new skills. Maybe the real problem if candidate lies or exaggerates his experience in CV using AI. But interviews, we still have them, and interviews will expose these gaps anyway, because it's much harder to fake expertise in a real conversation. I know that some high-tech candidates are even using AI during interviews, but uh, it's quite difficult right now. So there are only few, and companies on the opposite have some methods and already have some tools to work with it. For example, neural networks that detection and analyze eye movements uh, to to show that candidate reading from generated script, or some models that trying to identify AI generated text. And don't forget about other stages, for example, reference checks. They help to uncover things that candidate might prefer to uh, hide or look better on the page. Personally, I always conduct reference checks, and because of my network, I often know someone who has worked with the candidate before. So that's insight is invaluable. Maybe the conclusion of this flooding on the market with many candidates, it could tend to interesting trend we might see in the next years: faster hiring and faster resignations. If you understand that hiring process is not so reliable because of AI help, we will detect their the real candidate skills on their first months of work. So if AI helps candidates look better on the page, companies just may speed up hiring decisions, and then resigning candidate also faster, and align the whole process, taking this into account. But maybe AI just will compensate another AI, and we'll see just the balance. I don't know. It will be interesting anyway.
It certainly feels like, at least currently, the explosional improvement in LLMs has kind of broken the hiring process, because I think candidates were very quick to adopt ChatGPT almost immediately. Companies, of course, it takes a little bit longer. They have to either get people like you to build them custom software, or they have to wait for the HR tech to kind of catch up. Um, and there's just, it's slower decision making and all sorts of other reasons. So I feel like the companies are maybe slightly behind where the candidates are using AI in hiring anyway. So then, yeah, a lot of candidates, from what I can tell, are using ChatGPT to make their CV look more like the job ad, which then what I hear a lot is, oh, I'm getting all these CVs, many of which look really good. And it's almost now, how do I choose of these 500 good looking CVs, which are the, I don't know, 5 people I need to interview, because they all seem to look good. Um, I wonder though, then, if we had like a truth index about a CV, like how truthful is this CV? Has that dropped now if candidates are using AI to rewrite them or make them seem like the job ad more? What are you feeling? What are you seeing?
Honestly, I don't see a real problem with making your CV better using AI if you don't exaggerate your experience. So it just will save the time of recruiter and hiring manager if your CV is better in terms of this visual noise and unnecessary skills, so on and so forth. But for the other market, it's just the competition between different companies. Companies who implement such technologies faster will have an advantage. They will hire better candidates with lower costs in the end, and the companies who delay such decisions, they will lose in this competition, and someday market just will balance uh, will balance everything, and such tools will be must have for any hiring process. So mm, I don't believe it's something bad, because you still have real interview where you can assess everything you want to assess. Yeah, and you have all the tools already in place. And if you the company is massive hiring, and you understand that you rely a lot for with this hiring in terms of and business goal. You should invest more into such tools, taking into account the current market. Uh, that's pretty much it.
When you are interviewing candidates, and I think of having just seen a post today from Anthropic, like Claude's owner, from their own careers page. So a pioneer in AI, and they had on their careers page on the job ad, it had like a little disclaimer, like, we don't want you to use AI at all in this hiring process. We want to be able to evaluate your skills like without the impact of AI, which of course you're going to use in your job, but we want to just evaluate you. And that was their philosophy as an AI company. Um, and I personally don't know where I sit on this, because I'm like, well, on one hand, why would you want to discourage someone from using something that they're going to have to use in their job? And if they didn't use, they'd be ineffective. Why would you want to discourage that in the hiring process? But then what are you even evaluating then in the hiring process if it's just a candidate who's looking at ChatGPT has kind of augmented their CV, has inflated things, and is maybe even in a live interview remotely somehow getting hints from ChatGPT or Claude? Like, who are you even dealing with now? Like, is this really the candidate, or is this candidate plus AI? Is it like a cyborg? Um, what, where, yeah, where do you sit on this? What do you think?
Actually, interesting question. I believe that such statements are more PR based than than the reality, because the reality in 2025, the world is AI based and it's growing. So if you don't use AI, you just lose the time. But if you use AI for your HR process and hiring process, it doesn't mean that you fully exclude the people from this process. it it just means that you make your operations more efficient, and give additional focus to more mm, for better candidates for your role. So if you exclude 700 candidates from your funnel and keep just 300 assessed by AI, it gives your hiring managers additional minute or two to review each each application. So for me, it's about improving the quality, and it's even more about people in the end, because we just competing with AIs. And yeah, if some stages were made by with AI, we should add AI on the opposite side to compensate it. Then, but I don't believe that we will fully automate hiring process with AI, excluding people, maybe only for some specific and mass positions. Yeah, I believe it's possible. I saw some cases like hiring operators of customer support using only AI. But for more difficult and more people based positions in IT, currently, it's quite impossible. So anyway, you need to check the fit with the manager. You need to check the fit with the company values and with the team. And it's quite important to make with AI, because AI has no this empathy that is needed to assess such parts of the coin. So for me, it's not the real problem. And the companies who really don't use new tools to improve their process, they just waste their time. Maybe in case of these PR statements. Uh, but for other companies, what are the most? I believe they they will improve the process to improve the final impact from candidate. And in the end, it's a win-win for candidate and the company, because if the candidate is on the good place for his skills and it's a good fit, of course both sides are winning. Candidate is happy, yeah, he performs better, and company is growing better because he has this high performing candidate.
I feel like AI could even take care of. I feel like AI could be used for the whole hiring process soon. You mentioned for, let's say, more kind of standardized, simplified roles. It already is, so fair enough. Um, but even the, let's say, slightly wider, more difficult roles, where, as you say, there's like a fit with a team, a fit with a company, these kinds of things. Yeah, you're right. I don't really see how an AI could do the emotional element that a human could. But if our overall hiring accuracy is so low, like I don't know, I don't know what it is in aggregate. People say maybe 70 to 80%. If you're a good hirer, you're getting it right that amount of the time. That's still a pretty big error percentage. So there's still some level of like overconfidence in our ability to judge people and make decisions. So if we kind of outsource the whole thing to AI, maybe it would get an overall better accuracy score than that. We just have to sit back and let it do its thing and go, well, I kind of trust in this system that it's on average better than me. But maybe we're a long way from thinking like that. I don't know. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I fully agree with you. When you speak with a person, you acquire much more signals than any tool connected as a recorder of this conversation, because you have this emotional content, you see some nonverbal signals, maybe even they're not clear for you, but you still have this gut feeling as a company of overall decision making, uh, how people actually uh, think, and how people make decisions. So I don't believe that AI could make the same quality decisions as a person in the end, using the limited data set without these unverbal signals. Maybe in some era when we will implement some chips into our heads to fix everything. I mean, all the emotions, your blood pressure, pulse, so on and so forth. AI will be better in decision making than people. But now it's quite impossible because any digital tool could be cheated in the end of the days, because any digital tool contains some algorithm inside, and one day this algorithm will be leaked in the internet, and people will understand how to cheat it, and how to avoid uh, any problems with it. But people is not the same. Our algorithm is less structured than with the tools, with the computers. So it's much harder to predict what question will be next, and what will be your reaction as a hiring manager for a specific answer. You know, HR person, you have a set of some tricky questions, some behavioral questions, and you have own understanding how assess them. And it's quite difficult to cheat with them if you have enough experience with asking these questions, seeing candidate response, and just evaluate this response. So in the end, as I multiple said before, it's about the balance without with two worlds, AI and people, and the synergy will make the difference.
I feel like one monkey in the room that we haven't really touched on is whether we use humans or AI to do the evaluation of a CV, a reference, an interview, whatever it is. One big problem with hiring is that people aren't necessarily themselves during the hiring process. Um, you do an interview and it takes a really skilled interviewer and the right environment to help them relax, to actually have an authentic conversation where you're really seeing the true person. And so that would be an amazing unlock somehow if we could figure out the real person during the hiring process. Or maybe back to your point before, it's just about collecting enough existing data points about the person that you have then built up a more holistic picture anyway, rather than relying purely on the interviews to do that.
I understand what magic do you mean when you speak with skilled interviewer. You feel comfortable, and you feel less pressure, and it helps you to uncover your skills, your experience better. So I'm not sure about maybe some people say that I'm more comfortable with AI just listening to me and asking some questions than with a person. But I believe that people approach with this creating this atmosphere of relax, that is just a real conversation with two people. We are two professionals speaking to each other, not to hardly evaluate you as a candidate, no, but to explain about our company better, talk about expectations, and then ask you how these expectations matches with your experience. It's a much warmer discussion than just question answer with AI. I truly believe that candidates can feel less stressed, and you will understand this person better in the end. But of course, it depends of the seniority of the position you're asking for. You're looking for. For example, if you are looking for junior candidates like intern or associate, sometimes you want to make even more pressures through the interview because they have no working history to evaluate. So you need to see how they will perform under real stress, because the first jobs uh, might be the most stressful in any career. But for more senior candidate, you have this working traction. It's additional information, and for you, what is more important, how they think, not just how they react under the pressure. And uh, more experience means higher expectations on the start, so that makes interview much more stressful by default. Even if you're asking person to give some details about the job he was in 5 years ago, it's already stress because it's quite difficult to remember some details for five year ago projects. So that's enough stress on the interview by default. So even if we can do it more less stressful, it will be good for both sides. For candidate to show his real experience and skills, and for company to evaluate candidate better.
Less stress sounds pretty good to me. Igor, if you could ask our next guest a question about hiring or AI, what would you like to ask them?
Actually, I will also ask about this concern of fluid market. So we have mass job applications, auto-generated with AI, automated with some tools, and this AI tools makes the market. It changes the market. So this makes it harder for strong candidates to stand out. I'd ask, do you see this as a problem, and how do you personally approach this? What is your strategy inside the company to tackle it?
A very important and very relevant question that I'm sure everyone will be keen to hear the answer to. Igor, it's been a great conversation today. We've covered off a lot of ground, particularly around AI. It was great to hear, especially about your current live projects in that space, because I think it's great to hear from people who are actually out there doing it. So thank you so much for sharing those insights with our audience today.
Thank you. I love to share it. Interesting conversation. Everything related to AI and AI plus people. Really interesting for me personally. So it was a pleasure.